mute their mics so
Unmute,
that
unmute कर दो, unmute कर दो.
um, I would like to request non-speaking
Imran,
participants to please mute their mics so that we can start the proceeding. Well, today's event is being
unmute.
jointly organized by World Leadership Alliance, Club de Madrid, National Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs, Parliamentarian Commission on Human Rights, and Aurat Foundation. We would like to make a special thanks to Honorable Riaz Fatiana Sahab, who is the convener of Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs, and he's also chair of Parliamentary Commission on Human Rights, who is jointly hosting today's event. In today's event, we are joined by many international and national parliamentarians and the former Prime Minister of Belgium, Honorable Mr. Jovis Leterme, who is also a member of Club de Madrid as well. And we are also joined by Mr. Arnau Ramire Carne, who is the member of Spanish Parliament, and he's also the first vice president of the Joint Commission on the Spanish National Strategy to achieve Sustainable Development Goals. Um, we are also going to be joined by the honorable members from National Assembly and all provincial assemblies from Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, just briefly explaining you a bit about Club de Madrid. It's the world's largest independent association of democratic political leaders, which is bringing together over 100 former prime ministers and presidents from over 70 countries. Club de Madrid members build on their experience on governance to support democratic leadership and institutional capacity worldwide. Club de Madrid has been involved in Pakistan since 2018. Uh, Club de Madrid is promoting shared society concept for over 14 years in partnership with LNB Slikfa Foundation, uh, providing leaders around the world with greater understanding of the benefits and means to advance social inclusion as an essential element in development. Club de Madrid strongly advocate to mainstream inclusion in Agenda 2030 and continue to promote sustainable development with social inclusion at its core of implementation. Um, Club de Madrid, in partnership with Orth Foundation, is working to support the inclusion and implementation of Agenda 2030 in Pakistan. And the objective of the program is to demonstrate that inclusion and participation of diverse social group is key to effective implementation of Agenda 2030 in Pakistan. Um, Under this program, there shall be a series of dialogues amongst the federal and provincial parliaments, the government officials, civil society leaders, and former presidents and prime ministers who have led inclusive processes in other countries. And through this program, we'll document and promote best practices for inclusion, inclusive interaction between civil society, policymakers, and international parliamentarians, partners in implementing Agenda 2030. Before starting today's session, I'll be explaining a bit about the session. Of course, today's session is based on Agenda 2030 and the core concept of Agenda 2030, which is leaving no one behind. So we'll be talking about women's inclusion, religious and ethnic minorities, laborers, transgenders, people with disability, and poor communities inclusion in inclusive and participatory development in Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have this session. It's going to be bilingual, and we are going to have, because we have honorable Spanish MPs and a colleague from Spain. So there shall be bilingual, and there is a button present at the bottom of today's Zoom. There's there is a button of interpretations, and you can find English and Spanish interpretation over there. Most of the conversation shall be in English language, but once the Spanish speaking honorable member shall be speaking, so you can put English language over there, and you can listen to the interpretations. To start today's session, I would like to invite and request Mr. Riaz Fatiana Sahab to welcome the participants. Mr. Riaz Fatiana has over 35 years of active political, executive, and organizational experience. He has been a member of the parliament for 6 times. He has been minister for 3 times. And currently, he's convener of National Parliamentary Task Force. And he's also uh, vice chair, chairperson on standing committees on law and justice. So, Honorable Riaz Fatiana Saab, if you may unmute your mic and you welcome the participant and also share your vision and thoughts because the Parliamentary Task Force on SDG, of course, is the highest level political and oversight body on implementation of SDG in Pakistan. So how do you view that the parliamentarians in general and parliamentary task force in specific can play its role to include the voices of marginalized and vulnerable groups in development in Pakistan? The floor is yours, Honorable Riaz Fatiana Saab, if you may unmute yourself and if you may welcome the participants. Honorable Riaz Fatiana Saab. Riaz Fatiana Saab, if you may please unmute your mic.
अब आवाज आ रही? Ali Imran?
Yes, sir, please.
Ali Imran, you can listen me?
Yes, we can listen to
Yes,
you.
thank you, Ali Imran.
Sir.
Yeah, thank you. On behalf of National Parliamentary Task Force on Sustainable Development Goals, Parliament of Pakistan, and Parliamentary Commission for Human Rights, and members of Standing Committee on Law and Justice, and other members of Parliament of Pakistan, I really am grateful to World Leadership Alliance and Aurat Foundation who joined us. And of course, today's topic is very important, and during when parliaments are not working well due to close down and other pandemic, in democratic government, inclusive and sustainable growth of economy, human development, social security, public friendly development, transparency in policies, accountability, access to information, and participation of people in states affairs is vital as per. And and representation are other two important aspects of inclusiveness in the development process that require priority in developing. Strengthening of institutional framework is of paramount importance, especially in achieving SDGs agenda. Oversight of the process, periodic reporting, gathering of realistic data, term and medium term and long term goals, and strict monitoring and evaluation of the targets and indicators in this regard. Creation of SDGs knowledge and sharing module could stimulate the chain reaction in the reasonable attainment of targets in almost all goals of sustainable goals. Development can be inclusive only if all groups of people contribute to creating opportunities, share the benefits of development, and participate in decision making. The concept of inclusive development integrates the standards and principles of human rights, participation, and non-discrimination and accountability. Inclusive development occurs when inequality among groups is reduced. Inequality is a very important and domain of parliaments where we can work to reduce it. In the context of developing countries, this would in, and entail a strategy based on growth in sector where the poor work, use of labor intensive technology, availability of goods food security and services consumed by the poor, enhancement of human capability, and social protection for marginalized groups. So I think it is time that all stakeholders like parliamentarians, civil society organizations, and other respectable people working in human rights should work together and try to improve state of the poor people, because one third population of our country is living below the line of poverty, and this ratio is enhanced in lockdown. So this is our prime duty, that to reduce poverty and hunger, and to strengthen good health, the improvement of education sector, and gender empowerment and equality, and especially climate issues. So we all members and civil society should cooperate and exchange our viewpoints and experiences and expertise. This will help the parliamentarians to get and achieve SDGs Agenda 2030. Thank you. Thank you, Limran.
Thank you very much, Honorable Riaz Fatiana Saab, for giving your inputs and highlighting your vision with regards to inclusive development and declaring it a human rights agenda in Pakistan, and also highlighting the other aspects of poverty alleviation and developing human capabilities to be at the core of all this. Sir, we through these series of webinar, we shall be getting recommendations, and we shall be putting it forward to Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs and Government of Pakistan. Following this session, we'll be going to have session with the civil society organization, as well as with the marginalized groups. And as since Pakistan is going to present its VNR in 2018, in 2020, so we shall be contributing to that VNR process as well. Thank you very much for your kind comments, Riaz Fatiana Saab. We have been joined by a number of honorable member of the National Assembly of Pakistan and member of the Provincial Assembly from across Pakistan. So I would like to welcome all those honorable MPs, member of the Parliament, MNAs, senators, and MPs joining us. Moving forward, I would like to go to Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Jovis Leterme, who is Club de Madrid member, and he has been Prime Minister of Belgium in 2008 and then 2009 to 2011. Respected Jovis Leterme, Belgium and Pakistan share many things in common, especially in terms of political structures and presence of multi-ethnic and linguistic populations. How do you view that Belgium has been successful in political engagement with the minority groups and bridging gender gap? And what are the Belgium's experiences on the voluntary national review in ensuring that the marginalized groups are included and participated in planning, development, and monitoring of Agenda 2030? The floor is yours, Mr. Jovis Letterman, to share your vision and thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me first allow me to express my gratitude, to express how grateful I am to be able, on behalf of Club de Madrid World Leadership Alliance, to participate in this conversation. You mentioned already who I am and what the Club de Madrid is. I will elaborate a little bit on Belgium later. But I would like to underline the fact that from Club de Madrid's side, this initiative fits very well into the concept of shared societies. The concept of shared societies is based on our common experience as former political leaders in Europe and Africa and Asia and Latin America, that actually when you want policies when you want policies to be effective and efficient, you should have everyone on board. And so shared societies for us are societies in which all individuals, all citizens, hold status as equally contributing participants. free to express their differences while integrating their vision, their views, their voices within the broader population. So this dialogue and the way how to implement SDGs in national policies, from our point of view, what we want to stress is this concept of shared societies, which of course in countries like Belgium, but also Pakistan, as I understood, with multi-ethnic population, with different religions, with different kind of people, Belgium, Pakistan is of crucial importance. Let me secondly commend Pakistan, commend your leadership, commend the government, the parliament for the very active way in which, after the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, were adopted at the UN level, the way in which Pakistan immediately decided to transpose, to translate the SDGs in a national sustainable development plan. And even more, and there I think our activities in Belgium and Pakistan meet a little bit each other, even more also Pakistan already performed 2 national reviews. I think these are very important cornerstones of an effective, efficient, sustainable development policy. I would like to compare it by driving a car. Wanting to go somewhere, driving a car means you know where to go. And I think the goal of the whole effort is clear, Sustainable Development Goals. Number 2, you have a good roadmap at a global level, but more importantly at a national level. And number 3, you have a monitoring system, and that's the review, the timely review of the progresses and a kind of SWOT analysis of the efforts, of the policies, and of their impact or lack of successful impact. So this is the kind of conceptualizing effort we have done also in Belgium. Once the SDGs were agreed upon, we quite rapidly, not as rapid as Pakistan, but you're really difficult to beat. In Belgium, we translated the SDGs in national programs, regional programs, and even at a local level. 80% of the municipalities in Belgium have a kind of local, municipality specific plan to implement the 17 goals, not always very elaborate on all 17 goals, but on a majority of these SDGs. So throughout the policy making and decision making within Belgium, SDGs are owned at least by public authorities. But of course, this is only a start, because to be really efficient, to be really effective, refer again to the Shared Society project, it is very important to have ownership, participation, involvement by all citizens individually and collectively through their communities and through the associations, through the initiatives to which they belong. Let me then elaborate maybe a little bit on what Belgium exactly is, so that you understand, let's say, in the best way possible, what kind of challenges we had to face and how we try to overcome these challenges. Well, to put it a little bit blunt, Belgium is of course a nation, is a founding nation of lots of multilateral organizations, is a nation that is more than 170, more than 180, 90 years old, but it is located on the dividing language and culture border in Europe. And this has as a consequence that although we are all citizens of Belgium with 11 million people, we are living in a country without really lots of national Belgian structures. For instance, there are no Belgian political parties. The country is composed of 3 language-related communities and a 4th bilingual community, but this means we have no national political parties. We have parties in the Dutch-speaking part of the country and the French-speaking part of the country, but we have no such a thing like Belgian parties. So Belgian policies are built up from the need by communities and regions. We have no Belgian newspapers. People don't read Belgian newspapers. These don't exist. We don't have common language. There are different languages, And of course, there is also a diversity of religions, of beliefs, and of culture, membership of culture organizations and culture communities. So no Belgian political parties, no Belgian media, which means no real Belgian opinion making. So citizenship of Belgium is based on a tradition. We have always to work on that. It's not such a thing that comes automatically or that we should take for granted. Besides that, we have a very complex structure. Like Pakistan, we are a so-called federal country, but with very specific asymmetric also federalism and very complex, complicated decision-making processes. Political power is very much spread over all kinds of small parties. We have 7 governments, we have 7 parliaments, we have provinces, we have communities, we have regions. So it's a very difficult to understand for non-Belgians. It's a very difficult puzzle. So the first, as a consequence of all that, a cornerstone of our approach on the shared societies concepts and on monitoring progress and having a SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses analysis of our policies in the field of sustainable development, is that we have to invest a lot in coordination. Coordination between partners, political partners, regions, communities, federal government, political parties, that all have their rights and that all can decide, at least in theory, independently from each other. A community or a region doesn't need an agreement from the federal level to decide something, and it's not under control. So it's always based on a voluntary adherence, a voluntary initiative, voluntary participation of region and communities. So we had to, before the adoption at UN level in 2015 under the Millennium Development Goals, and after the adoption, we had to invest a lot in convincing, based on content and based on potential added value, convince all partners, political partners within the country and institutions, convince them of the added value of working together. Secondly, what is the, let's say, very complex and divided structure of the country translates itself also in the civil society. You don't have Belgian trade unions, you don't have Belgian associations, you don't have Belgian women's associations, for instance, or consumers association. Everything is divided based on languages and on community membership, which means that also when we talk about inclusive involvement of all organizations, associations, ethnicities, minorities in the country, that we have to invest a lot in bringing them together, have a permanent dialogue with people, opening all kinds of possible potential avenues for involvement and dialogue through these, to have these associations, organizations, minorities involved into the process. That also means that we had to invest a lot in translating the global goals into regional, community-linked, local goals, local objectives that would help us to reach the national result we want to deliver as a country. And all our dialogue, all our debates based on the fact that there is nothing mandatory for regions and communities. We don't have a hierarchy of norms in Belgium. We had to convince them by all the partners by the added value of the effort. In Belgium, in the Sustainable Development Goals implementation, I think that's comparable to Pakistan, parliaments play a crucial role. Members of parliaments have taken it up as a kind of duty, as a kind of key element of their activities in their constituencies, to have in their speeches, to have in their interventions, to have in their media appearances, to have in their interactions with citizens, always to refer to the broader framework of the Sustainable Development Goals. Sometimes this goes quite easy. If in a constituency you defend the issue of investing in public transport, it's quite clear that you can refer to the environmental benefits, to the benefits for the users. Sometimes when we talk, for instance, about goal 16 on institutional aspects, it is a little bit more difficult. But within the parliaments, like in your parliament, there we have supporting services that help members of parliament to, in their communication, in their action, to make it concrete and to make it visible, to make it understandable for all their constituents. So I think this is a very important element. We have invested a lot in involvement of members of parliament, of all our parliaments, the federal parliament, but also the community and regional parliaments, in being kind of ambassadors of the Sustainable Development Goals. And from the Belgian federal government, the Belgian regional governments, we have an agreement that whatever policy document that is produced, there is always a reference, it is always put within the framework of the SDGs, and also in the parliamentary debates. This is always a reference that is made, always refer to what extent a policy effort, a budgetary effort, helps us to come closer to the Sustainable Development Goals. I think it is no coincidence that our two last prime ministers were, before they became prime minister, they were in charge of international cooperation and development aid. And so based on that, they have in their minds and they have in their political practice, they are used to always refer to the broader context of international cooperation and of sustainable development. You might know that the last but one prime minister is now chairing the Council of the European Union, kind of president of Europe, and the current one, our current prime minister, was very much involved, for instance, in gender balance issues at a global level, and was a minister for international cooperation before he became a prime minister. But let's say the driving engine of our Sustainable Development Goals policies, both in planning and in monitoring progress, is the fact that, as a matter of fact, in Belgium, we always need a voluntary cooperation. We cannot force municipalities, we cannot force regions, we cannot force constituent parts of Belgium to cooperate with the federal level. We always have to convince them of the added value. Two last elements. It is, of course, of key importance, and there our members of parliament in Belgium have been working very hard on that. It's the monitoring, evidence-based monitoring. It was a little bit of a weakness at a certain moment in Belgium, and especially in parliamentary debates, to have figures, to have good statistics, even for a country that is quite well developed and has a tradition like Belgium in statistics. We noticed some 10, 15 years ago that in terms of our statistical apparatus, we were lagging behind in terms of methodologies and of quality and performance. And you, of course, know as good as I do that in political debates and in debates about making progress in terms of reaching, for instance, the 17 SDG goals, it is of crucial importance to have a good political debate that you can base it on facts and figures. And even more, when you reach out to associations, to organizations, to have a debate that is facts-based is, of course, crucial. So we invested a lot in our statistical apparatus. Second and last element is the fact that after trying all kinds of measures in the field of gender balance, better gender balance in our politics and in our daily lives, we have decided to introduce some, let's say in my time, it was some 10, 15 years ago, we decided to introduce quota systems. And I think one of the lessons we have learned from the past is that although you can make progress in terms of progress on a voluntary basis, at a certain moment, you need to put forward goals. And that's the reason why both in the list of candidates for political elections, but also, for instance, in terms of composing a board of a company or composing a board of a trade union, we have imposed quota. A quota where we kind of have an informal agreement that in 10, 15 years, we will see how this helped us or what has to be improved. But in terms of the SDG goals related to gender balance, this has been a very strong decision, and from 2014-15 on, we've seen the positive consequences. And today, our boards of companies, big companies, our governments, our parliaments, in terms of the gender balance, perform much better than, let's say, 20, 25 years ago. And where 30, 40 years ago, we had a very long way ahead to reach a real equal opportunities between genders and a good gender balance in the composition of parliaments and governments, and also the boards of companies, boards of enterprises, trade unions. The quota system has helped us a lot. I leave it there, Mr. Chair, just let's say a small taste of how we work on in Belgium on delivering on the SDGs. Let me just use one more sentence to say that we know that Pakistan is a country that is on the rise, that is becoming one of the leading nations in the world, also based on your population, based on the growth of your economy. I would like to commend you for the efforts that already have been done, and know that you have lots of supporters in Western Europe, in Belgium, and that we very much look forward to continue the cooperation, to deepen the cooperation, also to learn from you where we can improve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister Letterme, for your insights and sharing with us the Belgium experiences, as well as highlighting some of the key recommendations and key areas in terms of inclusive and participatory development, which we can. Mr. Prime Minister, I would like to highlight that Pakistan is one of the countries who has adopted the SDGs as national agenda right after its inaction in 2015. So in early 2016, we declared it national agenda. We have parliamentary task force on SDGs at the federal level to oversee and provide legislative support to implement SDGs. We have our national SDG framework approved by National Economic Council in 2018. So many of the steps are being taken, but you have rightly highlighted one aspect with regards to data availability. Unfortunately, we are having a big issue of data availability in Pakistan, and more than 75% of the data is either not available or it's in scattered form. We will be going to listen more from our honorable MPs from Pakistan on these elements. I would like to welcome Ms. Aisha Gospaisha, Member National Assembly, Ms. Asma Kadir Sahiba, Ms. Aisha Bano Sahiba, Ms. Ghazala Safi Sahiba, Zile Umma Sahiba, Ms. Ruxana Naveed Sahiba, and Dr. Nafisa Inayatullah Khatak Sahiba, the members of the National Assembly, for joining us. I would also like to welcome the member from Provincial Assemblies, Ms. Aisha Bano, Ms. Momna Waheed, Ms. Shamim Aftab, Ms. Sabrina Javed, Ms. Adiba Hassan, Ms. Aisha Nawaz Chaudhry from Punjab, Ms. Nusrat Sahar Abbasi Sahiba, and also Ms. Sarwat Fatma Sahiba and Talat Naqvi Sahiba. So we are thankful to all parliamentarians, and we are looking forward to have their inputs and contribution, and especially from female MPs who shall be contributing their experiences on role of parliament in for inclusive and participatory development, and how we can improve the situation in Pakistan. But before I go to the honorable parliamentarians from Pakistan, I would like to invite Mr. Arnau Ramire Carne, the member of the Spanish Parliament, and the first Vice President of the Joint Commission on the Spanish National Strategy to Achieve SDGs. Welcome, Mr. Arnau. Mr. Arno is going to speak in Spanish language. So for Pakistani audience participants, if you can just click interpretation button and down, and can select English language, so that because we are going to have simultaneous translation, so you can speak Dr. Arno thoughts and vision in Spanish language. Dr. Arno, I would like to ask you that Spain has taken many steps in ensuring that the Agenda 2030 is inclusive and participatory. And there are certain lessons learned from the Spanish 2018 Voluntary National Review report in terms of reporting on SDGs. How do you view that the Spanish experiences on collaboration with civil society organization and vulnerable groups can help to make efforts in planning, development, and reporting on SDGs in Pakistan and over there in Spain? So, floor is yours, Mr. Arnau.
Bien, en primer lugar, muchísimas gracias. Buenos días a
well, thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon. I want to thank the organization of this very interesting event for allowing me to be here on behalf of the Spanish Parliament and Spanish Congress, and specifically on the committee, both from the Senate and the Congress, that's in charge of following up the Sustainable Development Goals and their implementation. So the role that we play here in Spain, or the other parliamentarians have here in Spain, channel 619, starting with the 5th, through the committee that I am vice president of, and representatives from the Congress and the Senate, and we're in charge of following up these sustainable development goals. In these 2 years in which this committee has existed, we have very clearly had elections here in Spain and this terrible international pandemic. Then some of the speakers mentioned earlier, this pandemic has caused some of the work we do to suffer from lower intensity. But after the summer, the committee started working again with a lot of energy to carry out basically 2 functions. First, linked to what following your question, what would you ask parliamentarians to make sure that this carry out this follow-up, having the participation of different civil society organizations, especially those who represent minorities and vulnerable collectives, to make sure those groups are taken into account in the implementation of SDGs in Spain. Well, we do that thanks to different meeting points and civil society and organizing different meeting points organized by UNICEF Spain with the young people, so they could contribute with their vision and how they see, how they believe this to be developing the participation of civil organizations in Spain, especially through the National Secretariat on SDGs. Use this committee as a bridge between the government and social organizations. In 2018, the Parliament approved a bill, and the representative of the United Nations recognized that it was a great step forward, which created a political structure to make our dreams become a reality. And we question the commitment not just of a government or a parliament, but all the political structures of the country. In our case, we have autonomous regions, autonomous communities, and municipalities, and they have to be involved as well. It's that without the commitment of all the different institutions here in Spain, I think those goals would be impossible. I don't really want to elaborate much more on it. That's the role of our committee. And in Spain, as you know, is very committed to the SDGs. And despite all the difficulties we're going through, we want to achieve these goals as soon as possible because they design a world that we should all be part of. Democracy, equality, and sustainability. That is part of all of our goals. And those are the main elements of SDGs. So it is a true honor to be able to share with all of you and all the parliamentary Pakistan with someone haven't had the pleasure to meet, but it's really an honor to have shared this space with the Belgian former Prime Minister. Uh, that's all I wanted to mention. I'll be following all your interventions. So in this case, I want to congratulate all of you from Barcelona in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Arno, for your vision and insight and sharing with us the Spanish experiences on implementation of SDGs, as well as how the Spanish experience is to work with the vulnerable groups over there. Thank you very much for highlighting your experiences. We have been joined by Ms. Shandana Gulzar Khan, our Honorable Member National Assembly, Parliamentary Secretary on Commerce, and she's also the chairperson of Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians. So we are going to listen to her shortly as well, because she's also the chair of SDG subgroup 5 on gender equality at the Parliamentary Task Force. So we are going to listen to her. But before that, moving to honorable parliamentarians from Pakistan, I would like to thank Mr. Yovis and Dr. Arnav for the insights over there. And I hope that in discussions and through inputs from Pakistani parliamentarian, there might be certain questions or comments to the Belgium and Spanish experiences. So we would like to listen to you further on that as well. I would like to now invite Mr. Naeem Mirza, who is the executive director of Aurat Foundation and is having 23 years of dedicated affiliation with Aurat Foundation. Naeem Mirza Sahab, Aurat Foundation is working on women economic and political rights since 35 years. So what do you think are the perspectives of women's inclusion and participation in development in Pakistan? So can you share, because the foundation is closely working with women's rights groups and women political participation in economic rights. So what do you think are the major perspective of their participation to the development in Pakistan?
Thank you, Ali. Thank you for inviting and having this opportunity for us to be part of this distinguished audience, from Europe and from Pakistan. I was really pleased to hear Mr. Yoes Latame when he said that Belgium does not have national party and national newspaper and national association, etc. Mr. Latame, in Pakistan, everything is national. We have national parties, national newspapers, and even national food. So, so in Pakistan, you cannot think other than being national. I don't know whether this is good or bad, but being part of political processes in Pakistan, social processes, I think to be diversified and give ownership to the local communities, ethnic communities, more and more ownership and more voice and representation to local groups is a wonderful idea. So concentration of everything to small, what you call metaphor, like national might not, anyway. So there are lots of familiar faces. I would like to thank Mr. Fatiana Saab. He has been an old friend and a very, very senior parliamentarian in Pakistan, and as well as many women parliamentarians, those who have been working for several decades to uh, actually bring change in their own lives. And they have been successful. So one, perspective is that women's struggle throughout the world have brought SDG 5 as a very significant goal, which was not there in the MDGs. So, MDGs were rather a convoluted kind of mix of goals, but SDGs have a number of cross-cutting and overarching, and component of women and gender. But other than this, the goal number 5, SDG 5, is primarily focuses on gender equality. So, women's inclusion is not necessary; it is inevitable. And it is inevitable to the extent that if that inclusion is not ensured, the society will not progress. This is not my lesson. This is not a, a woman's lesson. This is history's lessons. Women have been kept out of history for since eternity. But now they were kept out of history. They were kept out of politics. They were kept out of education. They were kept out of literature, and they were kept out of everything. They were kept. They even couldn't. And we see that they even the civilized European countries got the right to vote in the last century. So women have to vote. Women have to vote for 3,000 years, maybe 6,000 years, and maybe when they started the campaign to get right to vote, they had to wait for 200 years, 300 years. I don't want to name, but since vote symbolizes one's right to citizenship, it was a big injustice. But we see that in Pakistan and in many other countries, when women were given representation in the parliament, where here we have a number of women from National Assembly and from provincial assemblies, they have they have proved themselves. They have proved themselves, to an extent that they have excelled in performance at the floor of the assemblies. They have moved private members' bill. They have, brought resolutions. They have, in fact, dominated the proceedings of the assemblies. So, I would like to, congratulate the Pakhtunkhwa Assembly that they have only 3 days or 4 days back, they have adopted the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act or law in the Assembly, which is very good law. As far as we see other laws, the law of the Act of Sindh Provincial Assemblies is also good, and we have a law in Punjab. So this would have not been possible without women's presence in these assemblies, without their efforts, and without their consistent efforts. You have to keep on knocking the door until it opens, and this is what has happened in Pakistan. So inclusion without women, inclusion without religious minorities and youth and transgender communities and children, elderly people, there's the concept of democracy, does not complete. So this is what is going on in Pakistan. Pakistan, as Ali has said in the beginning, it was one of the few countries which adopted the 2030 agenda, and the set up the task force for SDGs. We are active. We have our own challenges, though, which I think are common in all third world countries. And the challenges for the developed countries are different, and the challenges for the third world countries in countries like us are different. So, but one challenge which all countries experience is that this, we women in all countries are facing this menace and this, the threat, or what you call the fear of gender-based violence. This is such a big challenge for us, and in Pakistan. We would again like to say that the government of Pakistan, political parties of Pakistan have taken measures to check this offense. I would call it a crime. I don't call it a violence. I would call it the most heinous crime. So I think this again, women are, I should be appreciated that they have brought this change. Another thing which I would like to emphasize is that the floors of the assemblies and these assemblies and these parliaments, they represent the will of the people. And as we know that the SDGs, the first 2-3 SDGs are about hunger and about poverty. In our country, in Pakistan, in many other developing countries, the the challenge of feminization of poverty is also a very big challenge. So so it brings us to the realization that the our women in parliaments would emphasize and would increase their role when resource distribution is made, when budgets are made, and when even laws are made. The experience in European parliaments in some other third world countries, has shown us that when laws are made, the assemblies ensure that the budget for these laws is provided within the laws itself. It is not provided after the law is made. So I would request, we have been working with these women parliamentarians, but these women parliamentarians and parliamentarians are our representative. They are public representative. Ali, whenever you would signal me, I can speak.
I think
you can stop me. I think my time's up, so I would stop and thank you for this opportunity once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naeem Mirza, for sharing your thoughts and declaring that, of course, women's inclusion is not necessary but inevitable. So thank you very much for highlighting. Also, thank you very much for highlighting the women's contribution at the floor of the House, highlighting the kind of gender-based violence Pakistani women do face. And I would also like to emphasize the violence faced in the political arena and violence faced by the political leaders, women political leaders in Pakistan as well. Also, thank you for highlighting the resource distribution and gender lens to the legislation. I think we are going to listen it more from honorable members that how it can be ensured. So before moving forward, I would like to welcome Dr. Nausheen Hamid Sahiba, who is Parliamentary Secretary for Health and Member National Assembly, for joining us. Dr. Sahiba, we are shortly going to listen to you as well. We have been joined by Ms. Dr. Shazia Aslam Sophia Sahiba, the Member National Assembly. We have been joined by Ms. Dilshad Bano and Ghazala Saifi Sahiba, the Member of Parliament. So,
if I could get a chance to speak early, because I have to take a flight, I'm sitting at the airport. So my flight is at 4 o'clock. If you could give me just...
Yeah, just a moment. I think I'll be requesting you to speak right after Dr. Ms. Shandana Gulzar Khan Sahiba, and then we have your inputs. Thank you very much. We'll shortly take your input, Mr. Ghazala Saifi Sahiba. Before moving ahead, I would like to request Ms. Shandana Gulzar Saheba, who is MNA and Parliamentary Secretary for Commerce. Ms. Shandana Gulzar Saheba is chairperson of subgroup 5 on gender equality. You have been engaging with civil society organization and vulnerable groups. How do you view that it is important to integrate gender equality in Agenda 2030 implementation in Pakistan? And what are the Pakistani Parliament's experience on ensuring inclusive and participatory development, especially with regards to engagement with civil society organization and vulnerable communities? So floor is yours, Ms. Shandana Gulzar Khan.
Thank you so much, Aliman Sahib. It's a pleasure to be here. I hope I can be heard and seen. I'll not take too long. And in fact, I'm happy to offer my place actually to Madam Ghazala if she so wishes, because she says she's about to leave. She's at the airport. So if it's all right with you, I would happily offer my place to her and I can speak after Madam Ghazala.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shandana Gulzar Khan Saheba. Dr. Ghazala Safi, if you can make your contribution, as you have to leave, so please make your contribution and then we'll move to Ms. Shandana Gulzar Khan Saheba.
Can you hear me, Ji?
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Ghazala. Ms. Ghazala
Ji,
Safi.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Shandana, for being, you gave me the time to speak because I really have to take the flight. I'm sitting at the airport. I have my boarding card in my hand. So the flight is about to be announced in 5 minutes or so. Thank you very much for being a part of this whole, for letting me being a part of this whole program. And it is important to talk about the parliamentarians as such, but I thought it was just for the parliamentarians, not just women's participation. But yes, it is important for the 52% of women as we represent, whether we are on a reserve seat or representative of the people, otherwise through elections, we represent people of Pakistan. And I feel that Parliament does have a very important role to play, and we have to indulge ourselves and make the policy for the, since we are part of SDG also, I would definitely want ourselves to be a part of major policy change for the futuristic development of our country. And we have come in to play with a pledge to give the most time and bring a betterment in the society. The prevalent situation, as you all know, I don't want to get into a political debate here, but then the situation as such was not very viable for people to take up. But Fatiana Saab took this up, and our government has got this positive role that we have played to take up the SDG task very seriously. During this our term, the SDG task force was developed very seriously, and all the members, whether they are from another party or so, have taken this act seriously. Now, the important thing is how do we participate and how do we become the inclusiveness and the participatory bit. The important here is that as such, Parliament is supposed to be the prime lawmaking and the most on the top group of people who are elected by the people and who have a mandate. And therefore, they have to actually deliver and give the best they can, whatever the country needs. With all the given resources, and the reality, the fact is that Pakistan was in a difficult economic situation, and due to COVID, things could have gone worse. But because of the good policies, which initially for the people, it did not look very good, but it has made our textile economy go up and exports have gone up, and we have done a good job. But as far as women parliamentarians' role is concerned, we are, the women of this country are more than 50%, either 51 or 52%, but not less. So we have the most educated, the universities bring out the best educated women, and we are able to nurture them and bring them to the parliament, and to the best employment facilities should be given to women as well. It does not mean that men should be denied the employment or the role in the parliament, but they should be, if not equal, at least 30 to 35% of representation in the parliament and they should be given a role to play and be given seats to, and the number of women should increase.
Okay.
If the number of women will increase and the number of women are more number of women are able to indulge better into the parliamentary affairs, because women should be given more time, more chance to speak, because most of the women who have come into the parliament are educated, and they actually want to. I'm not talking about just one party. I'm talking across the board. All women parliamentarians do want to deliver and want to give the best to the country. So they should be
Thank you.
given a chance. They should be given a chance to speak in the parliament and give their point of view, because we come, I mean, I'm not saying that men do not do their work. They're very honest. They're doing their job well. But we women leave our hundred of things behind, but we do not deny our reality. We take care of our husbands, we take care of our families, we take care of our children, we take care of our households, and we also take care of the responsibility given to us, the national responsibility. We take that and keep that as a part of our character and integrity.
Thank you very much.
Women should be given that prominence in the parliament by the speaker and by our colleagues. Apart from that, we should be given important roles to take care of other women. Women caucus can also play a very vital role in this whole scheme of affairs. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Nazada Sefi Saiba, for your contribution in highlighting the political participation of women, as well as how the women parliamentarian can be given more opportunities at the parliamentary level to play their effective role for gender inclusion and participation. Thank you very much for highlighting that. Now, I would like to request Ms. Shandana Guldar Khan Saheba to make her interventions, and then, of course, we have a number of honorable parliamentarians who would be going to speak and share their thoughts and vision. So, over to you, Shandana Guldar Khan Saheba.
Thank you so much, Elisa. Just one moment, we're having a problem. We just sort that. Just a moment. I think we're okay now.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you also to the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Member of Parliament from Spain for their very important interventions. Also, thank you to Raza, who's also a good friend and Parliamentary Secretary for Culture. I'd like to start by beginning a small clarification. While I am chairperson of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians, I am no longer the Parliamentary Secretary for Commerce because I'm unable to do justice to my job as well as to PA, because it involves a lot of travel. To come to the subject today, I think from the aspect of SDG 5, I would like to start with a small story. I know I have limited time, 5 minutes, so I'll try to include all of that. Now, the story of SDG starts with the failure of the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. And I don't know if the video is okay. I'm not seeing the best of videos. Can you see me properly?
Yeah, we can see you, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So most of you will recall that the failure of the MDGs led to deep thinking globally, that if we as a world cannot come together, share our resources, share our best practices and thoughts, the SDGs are also designed to fail. And hence, what started off as a grand plan and still is on course, we are now 10 years away from delivery, already into 2021. The one thing that is different into the SDGs agenda is that, of course, the title itself, Leave No One Behind. But in addition to that is Eval SDGs. The evaluation process that has been built into the SDGs at the UN is an incredible forum for ensuring that we do our monitoring and implementation while the projects are carried out by each country to ensure we're on track. Now, in Pakistan, we're lucky, and I must acknowledge the efforts of the past government, which actually created an SDG task force of bipartisan group in which we have representatives in this particular government of 50 different members of parliament. We have every party, every gender, every sort of representative, whether elected or through proportional representation of minorities and women. Where Pakistan is concerned, I think we're doing a good job on the administrative side. We have provincial and federal departments looking at SDGs we have had in our report in 2019. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because where delivery is concerned is going to be different for each country. The few countries that actually delivered on the MDGs were China and Lanka. Soon after, you've seen Sri Lanka and Nepal include delivery on SDGs as a part of their constitutional mandate. That's the kind of importance they've given it. Now, since our topic today is best practices for engaging with civil society and engaging with marginalized communities at work, there are three things I can talk about as a parliamentarian, where we have actually, rather than talk about abstract examples, I'll give practical examples of how this SDGs task force, each one of us in our collective and individual capacity, we are actually delivering on ensuring the agenda and making sure that voices are heard. I can also talk about my experience, both as sub-convener for SDG 5, as well as in my role as chair of the Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians. Three things. Number one, I can talk about women in agriculture. I will talk about women in policymaking, in particular foreign policy. And number three, women in financial inclusivity. Dr. Aisha Ros Pasha, who is here today, she has served as the finance minister for the province of Punjab. So you will hear much more from her as well in the provincial policy, the national policy on financial inclusivity. And she's also the prime architect where the Commonwealth is concerned. She's coming up with a policy which will be presented by Pakistan to the Commonwealth for women's financial inclusivity, because the topic today is inclusivity and participatory process for delivering. We don't just want an SDG agenda which keeps Parliament out of the decision-making process. Unfortunately, for most of the world, during the pandemic, the Parliament has not as active as it could be because emergency responses were required. And I've said this on a number of occasions that the ESAS emergency cash transfer, where we looked at the Brazilian model, which has an inbuilt agenda of increasing the banking agenda of Pakistan's women, which is 1%, the lowest anywhere in the world. We have, through that program, ensured that women will have a voice in the next 5 years of this country, whether we're in government or not. Definitely not a parliament-led process. It was led by the executive. It has excellent results, but now it is up to Parliament to pick that up and to talk about it, how it can be diversified. So in terms of financial inclusivity, the ESAS emergency cash transfer played a vital role in ensuring the emergency cash is not only received, but a process is set up whereby the future of these women is not hampered by traditional and familial problems of permission, seeking permission to have a financial footprint in Pakistan, seeking to be financially viable, seeking permission of the males and the other heads of family, even your son, to figure out if the culture will allow you to come out of your poverty. And that has been our biggest problem. And SDG 5, at least where I'm concerned, is going to, we are also going to come up with through the SDG task force with the help of our convener, Mariana, and our patron, the Speaker National Assembly, to ensure that we are one of the first countries that will deliver on SDG 5, notwithstanding the cultural we face. Secondly, women in foreign policy. Women are often marginalized, whether they were members of the National Assembly or not. It is often difficult for our voices to be heard when you only have a handful of members who are in the cabinet, whether provincial cabinets or federal cabinets. Women don't have a seat at the table when it comes to security, which is a part of your Beijing Declaration. Both Madam Nafisa Khattak, who's in the room today, and I have been playing an active role in foreign policy where one country is concerned, which is Afghanistan, the Pakistan-Afghanistan Friendship Group. And we have been working actively on ensuring that the voice of the women in peace policy is heard. It is a first small step that we've taken through this parliament, through the Afghan-Pakistan Parliamentary Friendship Group. But we have one aim: to ensure that it's not just the men at the table, whether in the executive, whether in the parliament, whether in the provinces, or whether in our forces. Women's role in bringing peace to battered air and below TPK, those voices be heard. And we are producing results. You will see that the first time that Pakistan has granted an expansive visa regime to Afghanistan, in particular the border areas, and combining it with an investment regime for Pakistan is a direct result of that committee, of that Pakistan-Afghanistan friendship group. And I'm proud to say that all the women that are serving on that group, we are ensuring that our voices are heard. We will never get anything without a fair fight. We will have to fight. We'll have to dig in our heels, but that's fine. That's why we're MNAs, that's why we're MPAs, that's why we're senators. And we need to make our mark. We need to be heard, whether from our own party, from other parties. I must also mention here that Dr. Fehmita Mirza, the first woman speaker of the Islamic world, is also the founder of our Women's Caucus, whose job is to ensure that we deliver on legislations that are women specific. And one thing I must mention, this is something I picked up from Dr. Aisha Hospasha before I go on to my last point. At my election as the chair of Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians in Uganda, Kampala, she made this point incredibly well when she said that women's issues are not human rights issues, they're not social problems. These are national problems. We are 50% of the population. Therefore, don't relegate us to women's human rights issues, to education and health alone. We command 50% of this population. Your childbirth rates are high and productive because of women alone. And therefore, their voices are equally important. To that end, we're also going to introduce of a gender-sensitive budget from this SDG Secretariat with the leadership, with my colleagues who are working on this. And it can do that, even if it is not accepted in this particular budget, but eventually it will be accepted. That is our main contribution from the SDG Secretariat. And the final point I was going to make on women in agriculture, 70% of women in Pakistan are engaged in agriculture in one form or another, and yet they're not counted in a single province in Pakistan or any federal law as women labor the county even as contribution to agriculture. If we can do these three things, along with civil society, along with these groups, from the SDG sector, I think Pakistan will way and achieve equality and leaving no one behind. I will finish there. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chandana Gulzar Khan Sahib, for your inputs. It's excellent. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for highlighting some of the key areas where we can, based on women's contribution in different sectors. Thank you very much for highlighting all those. And we shall, through this Shared Society project, we should look forward to work closely with the Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs for bringing up the voices of those agrarian women and other women groups and making their voices heard at the Parliamentary Task Force level and at the government level. I really appreciate your contribution, Ms. Chandana Gulzar Khan Sahib. Thank you very much. We have been joined by Mr. Salim Sarwar Joda, who is MPA from Punjab. And I would like to appreciate Ms. Farah Agha because she's joining us from hospital and she's to make contribution for today's session. So I really appreciate all honorable member of the parliaments from Pakistan for their participation today. So I would like to now give the floor to Dr. Shazia Sobia Aslam Somro Sahaba, who has to again leave to catch up her flight as well. Since we have a number of honorable parliamentarians who has joined and who are going to speak, I would like to request all parliamentarians to please sum up their inputs in 2 to 3 minutes so that we might have an opportunity to have contribution of the maximum parliamentarians. So the floor is yours, Dr. Shazia Sobia Aslam Sahaba. If you can unmute your mic and you can.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Ali Imran sir. It's a great honor for me to be a part of this webinar. I think I should start with the first name of first Prime Minister, woman Prime Minister, young and woman Muslim Prime Minister, Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto. She is the one of the, I think, incredible lady of this Muslim world. Now I am going to my topic. I think the core job of the parliamentarian is to play a positive role in the legislation for the betterment of the people. It was the vision of first elected Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, that basic needs like roti, kapda and makan, food, clothes and the shelter should be available to all Pakistanis. The parliamentarian in the past have played their part in the delegating the power from the federal capital to the province through the 18th Amendment. As a parliamentarian, we have also initiated Pakistan BISP has supported millions of the Pakistanis to eradicate the poverty and the restructure their lifestyle. Then comes the role of parliamentarian in the redesigning the education system, for which we have been giving our suggestions to current government in uniform education system for whole country, and the creating the job opportunities and other duty of the parliamentarians, especially the government. Masses will be self-dependent. They won't rely on government only. The ex-president of the Pakistan, Mr. Asif Ali Zardari, had vision of Pakistan China-Pakistan economic corridor, which was later carried by the ex-prime minister Nawaz Sharif. This is the landmark project which will not only create job opportunities for many Pakistanis. Since the world is switched to the digital platform now, as a parliamentarian, it is our duty to have legislation as to shift our masses to that platform. We need to educate masses, create awareness sessions, encourage fresh blood, and invest more data science, and artificial intelligence.
Thank you. We lost your voice, Dr. Shazia Seba, but thank you very much for making the contributions.
Pakistan is a very rich in.
Th Thank you, Dr. Shazia Sobia Seba. Sorry, we lost your voice. I think you might be traveling, so there might be
Can
poor
you hear me
connection.
now?
Yeah, thank you very much for your contribution, Dr. Shazia Seba. We would like to move forward, and I would like to request Dr. Nosheen Hamid Seba, who is Parliamentary Secretary for Health. And she has done some immense work during recent COVID-19 situation. And so, Dr. Nosheen Hamid Seba, if you can make your contribution, please unmute yourself. Dr. Nosheen Hamid Seba, if you're there.
Yeah, I'm
Ji,
here.
Dr. Nosheen Seba.
Definitely, I would first of all, Assalamu alaikum to all of you. I'd just like to give some of my contribution related to COVID-19 pandemic. Also, Goal 3 of CGs. I'm the convener for the subcommittee of Goal 3, that is good health and well-being. So, things about COVID-19 health, it has extra burden on the of surprisingly, Pakistan proved that we are not many developed nations in dealing with this pandemic. This crisis, I believe, has turned out as an opportunity to tap our potentials. So I would just briefly mention few of the things done through the or involvement of the parliamentarians as well. The government opportunity. I will just briefly mention things. Okay, first of all, we did not have any umbrella legislation to deal with this sort of pandemic, which has come for the first time in our lifetimes. So the first time we have done legislations, unfortunately, because
Dr. Saiba, we lost your voice. Sorry, we lost Dr. Nosheen Hamid's voice. Probably she might be in some area where the signals are not good. Yes. Before moving ahead, I would like to request Ms. Aisha Nawaz Chaudhary, the MP from Punjab, to make the provincial perspective on inclusion. So, Ms. Aisha Nawaz Chaudhary, if you can unmute yourself and you can speak. Miss Aisha Nawaz Chaudhary, if you can unmute yourself.
Imran Sahab, Madam Nosheen Hamid is again.
Okay, Dr. Nosheen Hamid Sahib, please continue because we lost your connection. So
Can you
please
hear me
continue.
now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hello.
Now,
Assalamu alaikum.
Dr. Nosheen Hamid Sahib, if you can conclude. Aisha Sahib, just a minute. Dr. Nosheen, if you can conclude your.
okay, I'll just, I think my connection is not good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Dr. Nosheen Sahib.
I think my connection is not good. Okay, but I just wanted to tell you that for the first time, we have brought in an umbrella legislation which will cover all aspects of emergency if it ever comes to Pakistan again. Because we needed legislation for schools, for marketplaces, for restaurants, for health institute. So now under one name, all these things can be addressed.
Dr. Seba, we lost you again. We shall try to reconnect with you shortly. So in the meanwhile, can I ask Ms. Aisha Nawaz Chaudhary, please unmute yourself and make your contribution. MP from Punjab.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ali Imran. Can you hear me? Ali Imran sir, can you hear me?
Yes,
can you
please
kindly confirm so that I can start speaking?
Yes, please go ahead.
Hello. Okay. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I'm sorry I'm on motorway, so the signals might be breaking. Signals might be breaking up. Just to give you slight perspective on the kind of things that we're doing in Punjab, not only that we're working on specific laws for women and children and aligning ourselves with SDG goals that Pakistan committed to for 2030. But in specific, if I want to talk about the work that I am doing, it's more related to human rights, and I think Pakistan, specifically Punjab, will be super proud of the work that we're able to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Aisha Nawaz Seba, for your contribution. We are facing some problem with internet connectivity or with some members. So I would like to suggest that if you want to make your contribution through putting it in chat, and especially Dr. Nosheen Hamid Saba, because we would love to listen to you, but we lost your connection. So if some of the MPs, honorable MPs, can make their contribution through in the chat box, I think that's going to be visible to everyone, and we can have your contribution in writing as well. We have been joined by a number of members of the National Assembly and the provincial assemblies, and we would like to have their contribution. So if Ms. Dr. Nafisa Anayatullah Khattak Sahiba is there, if you can make your contribution. Dr. Nafisa Inayatullah Khattak Sahiba, if you can unmute yourself and can make your contribution, please.
Can I speak now?
Yes, please.
Hear me? I want to thank you all for making me part of this platform. I'm going to speak on English as I'm going to speak on education as I'm a convener for SDG 4. In Pakistan, Article 25A bounds our government for free and compulsory education for all ages till the age of 16. The host has asked you to start your video. Beta, they start my video. Is it gotten? Is it done?
We can hear you. Yes. Yeah.
Can you see
we can
me
see
now?
You as well. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum to all. Thanks for making me part of this platform. In Pakistan, Article 25A bounds the government for free and compulsory education for all children till the age of 16. Enrolling out of school children has started. We had lots of, as we are third world country, lots of children were out of school. So we have started enrolling them until 2020. We have enrolled 35,000 children all over. In my provision for and we are making education, educating institutes safe and enabling learning environment to be introduced in them. As you know, we had unrest in the country. So now, mashallah, we are in a very peaceful environment. In Pakistan, we had 3 sets of education. We had the madaris, the private and the government schools. Now we have brought them all into one platform. We have introduced one syllabus for all. And maybe it's rural or urban or any province, we are teaching them one syllabus and bringing them into one frame of mind. We are also giving them basic religious education in all institutes. So it is all equal for all. Besides this, we have shifted from, in Pakistan, first we had this system of memorizing and writing. So now we have shifted from all that to an IB sort of pattern, which is going to be producing lots of creative minds. Government schools are not, in Pakistan, because we are a third world country, we do not have enough government schools. So we were very grateful for the private sector who have stepped in and taken over and are bringing our children to school and educating them, which has increased our number of schools, children in schools. In Pakistan, COVID-19 has really affected our education, but thanks to the government's timely good steps, we controlled the damage to some extent. And the steps that were taken was that the schools, we did not close them totally. We brought them into, we asked the students, we divided them into different groups and make them attend school twice a day, keeping all the SOPs in mind. And besides that, we have also started tele-education, which has helped a lot. Then we've started e-education all over, helping teachers and children communicate and keep their education going. So children are getting homeschooling also. So this is one thing that has not really, kept our children out of school. So one thing that we do lack in Pakistan is funds. As you know, we are a third world country. Our economy issues in Pakistan are a hurdle, but our progress is not as fast, due to which our progress is not as fast as we would have liked, but are trying our best to keep improving. From the platform of SDG, we are trying to keep our Ministry of Education on its toes, and we are following them. We are grateful to all the NGOs that have chipped in, bringing this out of school children into schools. And we are in the urge of improvement, besides even after the effect of COVID-19. So I'm sort of like not that unhappy. I think we are doing good even after what we have been through. So inshallah, by the end of our SDG time, we will have improved a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nafisa Sahiba, for making your contribution in the education sector and inclusive and participatory development in education. Thank you very much for highlighting that. We'll have 2 or 3 more contributions, and then, of course, we'll request Honorable Prime Minister to make some of his reflections and thoughts on the discussions today. And we have Honorable Riaz Patiana Saab, who shall be concluding today's session and making recommendations and way forwards for the audience.
Ali Imran Saab, I'm able to connect back if you can allow me to speak for 1 minute.
May I know that who is this, because I can't see.
Aisha Nawaz Chaudhary ji.
Ji, Aisha Nawaz Chaudhary, please, yes, take a minute and please conclude your argument here.
Ji. Thank you so much. As I was mentioning about what is happening or the work that we're doing at Punjab, I want to specifically mention. That what we need to do. In Punjab, we have worked specifically on jail manual. We've rewritten after 120 years. We've rewritten the jail manual in Punjab. What that does is that 60% of the prisoner will start getting the treatment which is according to all international standards. And what you would really appreciate out of that is that we have rewritten the chapter of how the women prisoners will be treated and how the children will be treated. So I think there will be a lot of improvement in the quality of treatment that women get in prisons, along with their children who stay with them and under the age of 5, and also the juveniles will be coming in. Also, while I was working on prisons, and we've spent around 8-9 months rewriting this, we realized that we need a lot more help with, we as legislators, and this, I'm not just speaking for myself, a lot of legislators on this panel right now would agree that when we come into the parliament, a lot of us have not done legislation before and we need kind of support. And most of the times that support comes from a lot of NGOs, and like Aurat Foundation is a great example of how they come forward and help legislators in working on different topics. But at the same time, we felt that we need more support than just NGOs. So we have worked, I have personally gone to multiple colleges, and after going to law schools, I realized that it's not just that we're not taught how to write legislation or work on legislation. It's interesting that even law schools do not offer legislative drafting as a course. So in near future, we have collaborated with 2 main colleges in Lahore, LUMS and CANADE. Both have extremely good prestigious law schools, who will be working on developing a legislative drafting clinic with us. And in that clinic, students would be working for a 3-credit-hour course in which they not only learn the legislative drafting, but also do the research and reviews with the parliamentarians, and will be working in while collaborating with not only the Punjab parliamentarians, but also national parliamentarians. So that I'd really like to welcome all the parliamentarians in this group who would like to participate in it. They're more than welcome to engage with us. But this would soon be offered, and we'll have a lot of support from students who will be working with the parliamentarians. And I think that will be a great opportunity for us to specifically work on the legislation that we want to work on, and at the same time review the old legislation and have a lot of experts reviewing with us things without the bias that sometimes that come with when you work with stakeholders who have a certain agenda. So this would bring us experts who can help us without the bias. And so please, all of you are welcome to connect with us at any time if you need any support. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Aisha Nawaz Chaudhry Sahaba, for highlighting your work around prisons, your work for juveniles and women prisoners, improving the jail conditions, prison conditions. And also, thank you very much for highlighting where civil society can support parliamentarians through researches, through data, and through information, and through technical assistance. Thank you very much for highlighting that. I would like to have like 2 more contributions, and then we'll go to our Honorable Prime Minister and Mr. Riaz Patiana. We have Ms. Aisha Banu, who is MP from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and she's also convener of the Parliamentary Task Force, Provincial Parliamentary Task Force. So Ms. Aisha Banu, if you can contribute, unmute yourself and contribute.
May I also have a word, please?
Ji, Assalamu alaikum ji. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. Can you hear me, please? Is the video clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Aisha Banu, yes, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much to all the organizers who have been successful in arranging a wonderful orientation. I would call it an orientation because we are picking up ideas from each other. And to the Honorable Prime Minister, ex-Prime Minister, former Prime Minister of Belgium, and to all the organizers for arranging such a wonderful event for today. I'll be very crisp because we have been asked to reduce the speech. or the talking points, I feel the privilege to inform that the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Task Force is committed to work with all the concerned entities, not only in oversight, lawmaking and budgeting for the SDGs, but also helping the government departments to process in achieving the development agenda. As in our Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Task Force, we have four thematic areas and thematic clusters. And the head of each clusters have been strictly instructed by the convener to invite all the relevant stakeholders, relevant department and subject experts, and for the discussions held on the challenges the department is facing in terms of implementing the SDGs, and input from the experts are taken, and to have more inclusive decision making. That we have observed that the department feels comfortable in suggesting improvements, and the gaps are bridging between the legislators and the executives. But unfortunately, the gap between the public and the legislatures needs to be bridged. The most common means of engaging public engagement is through the public hearing, where formal and informal meeting to which interested people, stakeholders, subject experts, and civil societies could be invited to provide a submission on a specific issue. The issue is that the citizen no longer want to be a passive observer anymore. The citizens, being the mass membership organization, would rather want to shape and the outcome and play a more active and a participatory role in the decision-making process. With that, I would like to say that there are a couple of things that I would want to share that the SDGs task force have been actively working. We have a bill on HIV and AIDS. In this orientation, the session to the SDG task force organized by the UNDP, it was a thematic session and was kept for UN-AIDS related to the Larkana outbreak in HIV and AIDS, meant to raise the awareness among the parliamentarians on the lack of legislative measure to stop the spread of HIV and AIDS in Pakistan, and particularly in KP. The SDG task force took the initiative with the Standing Committee on Health, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and which led to a drafting and reviewing and analyzing the processed bill on HIV and AIDS after 3 rounds of consultations with the members of SDG task force, members of the Standing Committees on Health, and other stakeholders. Different, like transgender community, different representative from the different department, assembly secretariat, and the legal experts, officials, integrated programs on HIV, AIDS, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, etc. All these people were taken in confidence, and the purpose of these round of consultative meetings were to view and to discuss the salient feature of the proposed bill and to incorporate the opinion of the relevant stakeholders. The base was the already existing Sindh HIV and AIDS Act 2013, and if you want, I can share the salient feature, or if you want me to skip, I can be more precise and move to another. Hello?
Yes, we are running short of
Okay.
time, so if you can
and
make
similarly, then we had the plastic bag banning of the plastic bag in the province. We took all the stakeholders on board to promote environment-friendly biodegradable bags, and SDG task force with the consultation of relevant stakeholders like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Environment Protection Agency, civil societies, organization, academia, Pakistan Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, local administration, UN agencies, and media. And this led to the leadership. The leadership and SDG task force of the Provincial Assembly to ban and phase out plastic from the province. Similarly, the child sexual abuse, as most of you are aware, that after the Aptabad Nowshera incident, when that took place, the SDG task force decided to work on the amendments of already existing Child Welfare Act of 2010. And very good recommendations were. And already the recommendations, on those recommendations, the Speaker of the Assembly formulated a special committee, and the recommendations were shared with that committee, and those recommendations were then later on approved. So there were a couple of things that I would also want to share, that we, and at the moment, we do not have local government, intact local government representative with us, but I feel that taking on board local government representatives, because they are the people who actually work at the grassroots level, and they're the people who can who actually have access. So it is important that we also take public representatives, we also take local government representatives and civil societies with us while drafting these or taking any decisions, or if we want to achieve the SDGs or the commitments that we have committed ourselves to. With these words, thank you all for bearing and listening to me patiently. And I would like to congratulate the organizers and efforts for making this webinar a successful one. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Aisha Bano, for highlighting the work being done by the Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs at the provincial level in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Excellent work which you are doing. It is quite unfortunate that we have very short time today to have so many valuable contribution from honorable parliamentarian member of the National and Provincial Assemblies, as well as our international guests. I would like to make sincere apologies to those honorable MPs who wanted to make contribution, but due to lack of time, we might.
Can I have one word, please?
Yes, please.
Can I contribute? Yes.
Yes, please, ma'am. Briefly, yes. Yes.
Very briefly, there's one, my name is Talat Nak, and there is one aspect, and that is the use of drugs that has become very crucial in our country. As well, it's not only for amongst the boys, it's a very critical problem for girls because it leads to prostitution. I'm sorry, but if we need to educate, we need to educate across the board, and this is not a problem in a small school or in less privileged school. This is happening in all sorts and it's across the board. And this is a mega problem. It is creating a huge problem. We are working on it. At least I am with a subcommittee, which we have already started with the Minister for Narcotics, as well as with the help of with the consent of the Prime Minister. So we are on board on this thing, and it's a very critical situation. We need to address it before it becomes another pandemic. We are addressing it. We would like contribution from everyone and across the board. It doesn't matter which party, it doesn't matter who, it makes a difference that it has to be in all institutions. And what we have done is that we have created a parliament within this first college that we have addressed. The university that we have addressed is the Government College University in Lahore. Okay. They are the ones that we've got different, a panel of all their societies reaching out to other schools and other colleges and other universities. And that is how we are going to take it. So children, young people are contributing as well as the government. Well, the other thing that I would like to highlight, Imran, one thing very important, it is that we need research. Data and research is crucial. It is lacking. We need to identify this problem. And this was also something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for highlighting these two aspects, especially of drug use and the data. Well, with this, we have Honorable Prime Minister Yowis, we have a number of inputs and contribution from Pakistani women parliamentarian, and we would like to appreciate because the wonderful work they are doing and the contribution they are making to Pakistani politics is immense. And they have highlighted the areas all the way from economy to agriculture, from juvenile and women prisoners to other areas. So I would like to request Mr. Yowis if you can have some thoughts on some of the areas which are discussed by honorable parliamentarian from Pakistan. So if you can have your thoughts on that, and then we move to Honorable Riaz Fatiana Saab for the concluding remarks for today's session. Honorable Yowis.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time and heavy agendas of the colleagues, I will be brief. Let me first say that I'm impressed. And I think the quality of the intervention shows again that a good gender balanced involvement of all citizens of all countries in the world, also of Pakistan and Belgium, is not only an issue of fairness, just blunt fairness, but also of efficiency. I think no organization, no company, no country can afford to put aside 52% of its talent if it wants to really make progress and to catch up with good development, with good, wealthy nationhood. So I think this morning and this afternoon for you, the interventions of the very honorable women that have intervened, members of parliament and others, show that again. Number two is to say that as Pakistan now engages in another review, national review on the implementation of the SDGs in 2021, I think it's important to call upon you to make sure that that review is really conducted in an inclusive way. During the conversation, lots of minorities, sometimes people that are in extreme difficulties, think of the prisoners, think of the HIV patients and others have been mentioned. Well, it's important to have them on board, in this new national review, of course, besides the majority, but also minority groups. Once again, particularly most vulnerable part of the population has to be heard. Women, religious and ethnic minorities, people with different ability, laborers, transgenders, other marginalized groups should be consulted in this review, consulted in the planning and development processes in Pakistan. And so gender equality, inclusion is really very important. Second thought is that besides gender balance, I think what is a driver of progress today is the international cooperation, is the openness to international multilateral framework. We would not discuss SDGs without the UN system existing. And so this is only one part of the potential of open international cooperation. And I would like to encourage the Pakistani colleagues to seize every opportunity to check, to review the domestic policies in comparison with best practices worldwide. We can learn a lot from you, but it's also good to have input from outsiders, from other nations and from other practitioners from all over the globe, to have the input of these people, institutions, organizations, and nations to go further, to improve your own processes. And COVID had at least one positive impact, is that we start to be more and more familiar with all these ICT tools that allow us to convene in an online way, in a virtual way, saving a lot of time, saving a lot of energy. Of course, face-to-face conversations and meetings can never be replaced. But on the other hand, I think the use of ICT tools allows us to seize all potential benefits of international cooperation and exchange of best practices in a really massive way. Third and last element, which is only, let's say, it's only addressing a part of all issues we are confronted with, but it has been mentioned by earlier speakers. I think COVID has also learned us, COVID-19 has learned us, like other disasters, that we have to invest more in preparedness, in resilience. And also there, invest in preparedness, in resilience, is only effective if you have everyone on board. And once again here, the concept of shared societies brings you very, very far. Two last very short operational remarks, one important and one anecdotal. The number one is that we at Club de Madrid share societies with the 100 colleagues that have been leading their nations over the last decades and that have experienced what it is to draft and implement policies. We are at your disposal. If you ever want to be in touch with us and want to have experiences reported to you from countries all over the globe, please connect to us via Mr. Imran and other people. Please use us. We are there to help and we would be delighted to help. And a very last remark is a personal remark to Mr. Naeem Mirza. In terms of national food, Mr. Mirza, our national food, we have national food. Our national food is the fries. Unfortunately, they are sometimes called the French fries, but the Belgian fries are the best in the world. And what is even better is our beer. We produce the best beer in the world. So we have national food, we have national drink, and you're more than welcome to taste it. Thank you very much for your attention. I would like to encourage you and to congratulate you, to commend you for all what you're doing. You're setting the example for lots of nations in the world, and I was very pleased to be part of the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister Leterme, for your concluding remarks and highlighting the areas of international cooperation, use of ICT, and preparedness and resilience for COVID-19. And thank you very much for your offer on behalf of Club de Madrid to support the Pakistani Parliament and Pakistani stakeholders over here and to support Pakistan you have rightly mentioned that Pakistan is going to present a voluntary national review report in 2021, which offers an opportunity to take stock of the mechanism for inclusion and have been used so far and reflect on innovative tools for future strategy inclusion. So with this, I would like to request Honorable Riaz Fathiana Saab, the convener of National Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs, to sum up and to make the concluding remarks on the intervention from our Prime Minister Leterme, our Honorable MP from Spain, as well as the number of Honorable Member National Assemblies and Provincial Assemblies from Pakistan. They will make some great contributions. So Fathiana Saab, if you may conclude and say a note of thanks on behalf of Parliamentary Task Force on this.
Thank you, Ari Imran. First of all, I appreciate Honorable former Prime Minister of Belgium, Mr. Yael Leterme. I visited his constituency, which is south part of Belgium, called Mons province. Still, Mr. Leterme is very popular person among his in his constituency. I visited many times his constituency, and we have some common friends as well. And
thank you.
I appreciate and secondly, I really appreciate participation of Ms. Shandana Gulzar, Ms. Aisha Ghaus Pasha, Ms. Asma Qadir, Aisha Bano, Ghazala Saifi, Kamal Shazib, Nafisa Naitullah Khattak, Dr. Noshin Hamed, Dr. Nusrat Wahid, Rukhsana Naveed, and Mr. Naeem Mirza, and Zulay Huma, and Chaudhry Muhammad Shafiq, and especially and Aisha Nawaz Chaudhry from Punjab, Aisha Bano from KPK, Shazia Sobia, and other participants. Especially, I again congratulate World Leadership Alliance Club de Madrid. I was in Madrid last year. And SDG Secretariat and Parliamentary Commission for Human Rights and Audit Foundation, especially Naeem Mirza. So this was an excellent experience. I appreciate all participants who gave maximum time to listen and to spoke and participate in this excellent event. I think there is need for more cooperation among international stakeholders, especially.
I think take my name too. I'm leaving.
Welcome, Mr. On the leave. Okay, thank you. Mr.
Sir, your voice is muted. We cannot listen to you. Riaz Fathiana Saab?
Sir, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
अब आ रही?
Yes, जी अब आ रही.
Now?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. I also appreciated a Spanish member of parliament, Mr. Ornon Corner, who spoke, but we couldn't understand what he told us. So there is more need for further cooperation at international level because in COVID-19 pandemic parliamentary practice and parliamentary norms and parliamentary interaction with each other. So through this online meetings, we can get more information and exchange our experiences. And there is need more appropriate legislation, policy formation, monitoring, evaluation, and coordination, capacity building on regular basis.
Sir, we lost your voice again. Fatiana sir?
Sorry, I think there is some problem. So there's more need to implement a SDG Agenda 2030 with spirit and with dedication and commitment. National Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs is based on 52 members of National Assembly and 8 senators. And we have a secretariat within Parliament House, and we established 16 subgroups headed by a member parliament who are working well, and we have some kind of research support, as well as at provincial level we have also task forces. So I think this is time that members parliament, civil society all should sit together and work hard to achieve SDG Agenda 2030. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Riaz Fatiana Saab, for your concluding remarks. And we look forward to be of technical assistance to Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs in terms of collating information and inputs from civil society organization, from vulnerable groups. And in coming weeks, we will look forward to have follow-up sessions with different groups in Pakistan as well. And we shall be presenting you, Honorable Riaz Fatiana Saab, report on the recommendations from those follow-up sessions. And we would like to remain a part of those discussions. With this, I would like to formally thank everyone for their participation and contribution today. I would like to make a special thanks to Mr. Shafiq Chaudhry and his team. From PCHR, I would like to thank the team at Parliamentary Task Force on SDGs. I would like to thank colleagues at Aurat Foundation and colleagues at Club de Madrid who made efforts to successfully implement today's webinar. We have a number of recommendations from this, and we shall be compiling these recommendations in a form of a report. We shall be having follow-up session with civil society organization and vulnerable groups. So we'll be taking all those information, and by March, we shall be having these recommendations presented to the government of Pakistan, especially to make this a part of Voluntary National Review Report for 2021. With this, I would like to formally thank everyone for your contribution, and I would like to formally conclude today's discussion, and looking forward to work together for a better world with leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.